Welcome to Pictures on the Scorecard. This is episode 3. My name is Seth McWhorter. I am a graphic designer and branding professional, whatever that means, in the golf industry. And I'm joined, as always, by Robbie Woodard, founder of Best Ball Media. Tonight we are going to talk about something pretty niche in the golf industry. You probably have already sensed a theme in terms of how niche we're going to get on this show, but we're going to talk about professional golfers' personal logos or personal brands. And it's something that obviously has been around since, I don't know if the first iteration of it would be Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicklaus. I'm sure there's somebody out there that can tell us the real first one, but I think Tiger is an example of a professional golfer who is a brand in and of himself. I remember when I was like maybe 12 years old, just getting into golf, and I got a Tiger Woods Nike polo with a zipper instead of buttons that had the original Tiger oval logo, which I still don't know what that represents, but I think it's the coolest logo. And then the TW is great and all that stuff, and we can get into Sunday Red. But Robbie, tell us about your first thoughts when you think about professional golfers' logos.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you mentioned, like the Arnies and the Jacks probably are the ones that stand out as traditional. I mean, I'll throw Greg Norman out there too, because I mean, you when I grew up and stuff, you go into a Belk or a J.C. Penney or something, and there were just racks of these shark shirts, and I was like, that's awesome. Granted, your thoughts may differ on that today. You might not go buy one of those, but right. Yeah, and then it seemed like a big gap until you got to Tiger. I agree with you. I like the whatever that was. It kind of looked like a very generic logo. And then the TW that has been there for years. I mean, Scotty Scheffler still wears those shoes, right? And still loves it because he looks up to Tiger. So I think it's a great topic, and one that I think we'll just have some fun with. All right, so we talk about the logos; they're awesome. Let's kind of break down the categories, right? So let's talk about the classic or the legends of golf. When we talk about Arnie and Jack, talk about those a little bit and how they've kind of defined what other players have done today.
Yeah, so in sort of preparing for the show and doing a little bit of research, I was curious about the Arnold Palmer umbrella, and I think that's like that is one of the most recognizable logos in golf. And I don't think I knew the history of it, but it was in 1961. Arnold Palmer, was coming off, a crazy stretch of success, and he's sitting, he's starting to sort of get his business together, as most of these athletes do when they start having success. And they're sitting around at least this is from his website. They're sitting around like a boardroom table, and they're just like, banging their heads together on a logo. And apparently, as the legend goes, Arnie steps out of the room and goes for a walk, and it was like a rainy day. And he comes across this lady getting out of a car with this multicolored umbrella. And of course, I'm sure it didn't happen like this, but he runs back into the room in a blaze of creativity and says, what about the umbrella? And they do the copyright research, and the rest is history. Again, I have no idea if that's actually how it played out, but it has become this incredibly unique and successful logo in the world of golf. And I think it's truly iconic. It's not just the umbrella, the fact that it's umbrella, but the colors. Much like the Masters, we talked about that in the last episode. The colors themselves are iconic, and I think that's a really cool. It doesn't rely on, and we'll talk about this. It doesn't rely on initials. And it doesn't rely on a silhouette or anything like that. It's a very unique and memorable logo, which I think is neat. Jack Nicklaus, Golden Bear, little tidbit on that. I always thought he was the Golden Bear because he had blonde hair and kind of looks like a bear when he was younger. I think it was a reference to his high school mascot, Upper Arlington, Ohio. Go Golden Bears. So that's the origin of the Jack Nicklaus Golden Bear, and obviously that's taken a life of its own. And there's been some interesting developments over the past few years with Jack and his likeness and all that stuff, but that's probably an aside for another day. But those are the most, in my opinion, the most iconic until you get to Greg Norman and Tiger. And obviously, I'll let you jump in and kind of talk, what you think about those, or if you have any thoughts on Jack and Arnie.
I think, like you said, the iconic thing about Arnold Palmer, his logo is that, now that he has the tournament at Bay Hill, all players buy into it. One person I think of in particular, Ricky Fowler, and what they do with his clothes, his shoes, and everything to kind of honor Arnold Palmer at that tournament is really cool. But I thought Tiger had a great logo. It was just the initials, but it kind of made sense. Someone with a last name W, I'm like, all right, I got it. I like that. Then he kind of left that for a while, and the breakup with Nike, and all of a sudden you get this Sunday Red. And I know you have some thoughts on that one.
Yeah, well, Tiger, the evolution of Tiger's logo has been interesting, and I do think that it could have gone. It didn't quite have the cachet of a Jordan brand, and it wasn't. I mean, obviously the marketing of the Tiger Woods brand was all tied to him, but they went the route of the initials, which I think has sparked every player that has a logo these days, for the most part, is the initials, and I would argue, I don't know if it works quite as well as it does for Tiger, but yeah, I mean, I think obviously he's sort of the gold standard for anything he's done in the past 30 years, and the fact that he's had this big breakup with Nike and has launched his own thing is been very interesting, and I think the Sunday Red, the whole conversation is fascinating to me, obviously because of what I do on a daily basis, but it's just the people actually do care about this a lot more than I thought, and I think that that's probably just a result of Tiger being the most popular golfer in the world.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's kind of shifted then to the next wave of golfers, right? So guys like Jordan Spieth and Justin Rose and Justin Thomas and Adam Scott and Sergio and on, all kind of have their logos. A lot of them are initial-based logos. Do they need it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think like you said early in the show, they find success and they're like, all right, maybe we need to brand this thing a little bit. And
yeah,
yes, they are, I guess, independent contractors, so they are their business. And so it's just a way to put a logo on them as a business, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's funny. It's like, and you've seen it over the past few years, especially in the college sports landscape. When that NIL came about and players started, monetizing their likeness and creating their own brand. You saw a lot of them, create logos and say what you will about it, how well they're executed. I find that very interesting, and I think it's what's funny about this next wave, and you hit on this, is what's the purpose of some of these guys' logos? Obviously, I want to take it head on and say a lot of times it's simply their foundation, their charitable giving, and that does need some sort of branding. So I get that, but it's kind of funny. And this is no knock on Billy Horschel specifically, but I don't know what purpose Billy Horschel's logo serves in the greater golf landscape. And again, I'm sure he does tons of great things in the game and charitable things.
And I love Billy Horschel. I think he's great. But you put his logo in our notes, and I thought you had copied and pasted the Holderness and Bourne logo or something.
Well, it's funny. I had a buddy, or I have a buddy. He's a great friend that is a CPA, and I did a logo for him 10 years ago, and it looks shockingly like this, almost like I ripped off Billy Horschel, which I certainly didn't. And I don't know if Billy had a logo 10 years ago. And I'll also say, disclaimer, I've done a logo for a professional golfer, and I'll cop to it. We use the initials. They're just it's interesting, and I think this is where it's kind of fun to think about. You've got Tiger, Bear, the Shark. You obviously got Animal. John Daly has the classic lion. I mean, these players now that create these logos, they don't necessarily have a very obvious icon or symbol or thing that that you just immediately grab. So maybe we need to bring back more animals in terms of nicknames.
Yeah, so I guess the question then is, like, do they need one?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, maybe let me ask you this. For those that don't have a logo yet, who does need one?
Well, all right, so that's a great question because maybe a month ago, Minwoo Lee, who is affectionately known as the chef, he put out on his Instagram, and I'm calling him out a little bit because I think he put out a logo contest. He was like asking people to design logos for himself, and if he wasn't such a likable guy, this would be a little bit annoying. But just logo contests in general are pretty much a way for people to get free design work, which I'm never going to advocate for. But Minwoo awesome. He's known as the chef, and he asked for logo design ideas, and I don't have a lot of free time between my business and my family, but I quickly threw together a logo for Minwoo Lee, and it was a kangaroo. It's probably pretty cliche for an Australian golfer, but that would be an example of someone who has the personality and obviously the game to justify a logo, and maybe he needs a really cool one. I'm not saying we need to call him the kangaroo, but that wouldn't be the end of the world in my opinion.
No, I saw when you posted that. I thought, man, this is outside of the box from it's not the initials, and it does kind of take where he's from, kind of a nickname he's acquired, and kind of puts that all together in a fun, and like you said, he's a fun type of guy that I think would want something like that. So, yeah, I imagine someone like you in your position is not a fan of the contest because, yeah, they are asking for free labor. So who knows? He might pick something that somebody did, and what did they get for it, right?
Yeah. Well, I would just take the pat on the back for Minwoo. I think that'd be pretty sweet. A couple of interesting. This would certainly fall into the legends category. But Lee Trevino has a pretty iconic sombrero with the golf club logo, which I just think is super fun. And you did a little bit of reading on his website about the origin of that.
Yeah, he looks like he copyrighted this thing. It's known as either Merry Mex or Super Mex. Copyrighted it in 1967. But it was recently, after his son, I read, graduated from college, that they launched the Super Mex golf line of clothing. So you can go out there and get one of those. It kind of looks like, the Club Pro guy? It almost looks like his little icon that he has on social media. But it was funny, there's a quote on the website that says, "I'm the last of the Mohicans when it comes to logos. Jack had the golden bear, Arnie had the umbrella, but nobody else has a logo you can recognize," which is funny.
I love that.
I don't know if I would have thought about this until seeing it now.
Yeah. Well, it's a good example of again, we talk about the initials. Like it's digging a little deeper. It's pulling from a very unique part of his heritage and his his story, and it's something that only he can own. And I think that's where maybe some of these people Minwoo Lee, that's it's based on him, and it's not just like, all right, it's MWL. And so that's where I push a lot of these players who don't have logos that, in my opinion, deserve them. We were talking really briefly before we started recording about on the ladies' side, Nelly Korda, who is just obviously on fire right now, does not have her own brand to my knowledge, and what an opportunity that would be.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and I'll just throw out, we said Scotty Scheffler too, and it's kind of weird that the two number one golfers on the respective tours, neither one of them have their own personal logo. But Nelly, God, from a business standpoint, if she put her logo or name on a brand, a clothing line, I've talked with people before, like there's a gap in the ladies' golf clothing line because there just is. And if she were to come up with her own brand and stuff, man, yeah, it might be Jordan or Tiger-esque, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you're right. I think it is something that is sort of a hole in the market, if you will, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that changes at some point in the future. I'll quit. About an hour before we started recording, I got on my Instagram and put a question out there. It's like, tell me about your favorite professional golfer logos, and maybe tell me about the most random one. And I got some pretty funny responses. I Kevin Na was a good one. He capitalized on like a little trend that he started. I think it's a little bit.
Was that real?
I mean, yeah, no, yeah, the logo's real.
Of him walking, and I mean, I know he walks in putts, or that was kind of his thing, but yeah, look, the silhouette of him walking behind a putt or something, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gutsy, very self-confident logo. That's all I'll say. But people have strong opinions about this stuff, which is again, I shouldn't be surprised about this. Some people are not a fan of the Justin Thomas one, but again, it seems to be tied to his foundation. I think that's great. This is pretty head on, and we're not going to go down this route of actually critiquing them all. But somebody said rank them, talk about why most of them suck. And I don't know if we should do that at all. But I think that I think we've sort of broken down what makes them interesting and what makes them not so interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have any other favorites that we were missing?
One of the ones of the other kind of guys that stands out that I really like is Justin Rose. Like, obviously, he's a well-known golfer. I don't know him. I think he's just an incredible guy. And the rose that he uses in his logo, I think is very well done. And then what he and his wife do for their foundation, especially supporting women's golf and all the things they do. I think that takes, obviously, when your last name's Rose, it helps. Any others that stand out to you?
Yeah. So in our notes, Bryson has his original one, which I think is tied to his charitable givings, is the silhouette of him in the hat, which is not a super flattering silhouette, but that's neither here nor there. And then now he's got this other one that's sort of book shaped with BD. Notably missing a logo is John Rahm. We talk about like fiery personalities, people with interesting, cultural heritages and interesting stories. Like, that's a guy that should have an awesome brand, whether or not it's like a merchandise, apparel brand, but like it should. I feel like it could stand out really. And right now, if you go to his website, there's it's lacking in excitement in that front.
Well, if he did come up with one, you'd only be able to see it in the majors. So.
That's right. One little last tidbit before we maybe we'll go into our routine par segment. I miss, and I can't say that I think about this a lot, but the senior PGA Tour, obviously it's the Champions Tour now, used to have their take on, or their version of the PGA Tour logo, which it was modeled. It was a guy in Knickers, was modeled after Jim Furyk, which is a name that I can't say I knew. Guy, he won on the PGA Tour once and the Champions Tour twice back in the 50s in the PGA Tour. But I did a little research. He actually sadly passed away in March, but he was this incredibly flashy dresser, iconic guy. If you look at him, apparently he was an incredible guy in the golf world, not just as a professional golfer, but his silhouette was utilized, sort of like the Jerry West was utilized for the senior PGA Tour logo, which I think they should bring it back. Right now, the PGA Champions Tour just uses the PGA Tour logo with the Champions sort of word mark. I think they need their own one and bring back the Jim Furyk silhouette.
That'd be great. One other one, I guess you talk about silhouettes. I guess one we got to touch on before we jump is Phil taking advantage of the 2004 Masters win, jumping in the air, celebrating. I mean, it's his jump man, right? Like,
yeah,
and of all the times to capitalize on a logo, I think that was a great time to get one.
Yeah, it was hardly a jump. It was just enough of a jump to be a silhouette. But that one is obviously instantly recognizable, and I think it's well done as a silhouette. The silhouette thing is a little bit tricky. If it's not an iconic thing, it doesn't really work. But yeah, that's definitely one worth mentioning.
Yep. Well, let's jump into our routine par, and again, just to remind folks, this is kind of a 3, 4, or 5 things that kind of has stood out to us. I'll start. We're recording this before the Masters, but it's the week of the Heritage when we publish this thing, and I was just thinking about it. Talk about logos and kind of things that stand out. Plaid is obviously a big thing for the Heritage, which I think is really cool. But the question is, they hand out a plaid jacket to the winner, and it's the week after the most famous jacket in all of golf is awarded. And the question is, do other tournaments really need to hand out a jacket? Or are they trying too hard? Should they say, all right, let's respect the Masters enough that we're not going to do a jacket, whatever, give a nice trophy or what? But I don't know. And I love the Heritage. I've gone. It's in South Carolina. I love it.
Yeah. I'm torn on this. If I had a jacket like that, I would love to rock it. I played a member guest last year where the winner gets it's actually called the red coat, I think, or the red jacket, probably the red coat. That makes more sense. But the winners get a red jacket. They get to, obviously, they get to wear it when they're on property, throughout the tournament. I think you're always going to be, looped in with the Masters and maybe sort of the second place, but I mean the Colonial does it as well, and their pattern of the tartan is it ties to their history. So if there's a good rationale, if it's not just, hey, we want to give out a jacket too, then I think it's fair game. But it's a great question.
Yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to the people at Barrier Free Golf. Barrier Free Golf is a nonprofit started by Tim Anderson and some great people. They have a project up in Chaska, Minnesota that I was very fortunate to get involved with back in 2020. It is a 10-hole par 30 course, a public municipal course. Barrier Free Golf is a nonprofit. They put together the funds to take an existing public course and completely redo it. They enlisted Benjamin Warren from Artisan Golf Design to reimagine this golf course with the goal of accessibility in mind. Accessibility from a financial standpoint, from a skill level standpoint, but most interestingly, a accessibility from a physical standpoint. And it's the whole facility is ADA accessible. It's meant for golfers of different physical abilities to be able to be introduced to the game. The design of it is super unique. It's a lot of template holes, or sort of rough template holes to introduce people to sort of the key principles of golf course architecture. It's just an incredible project, and they are having their grand opening in Chaska in May 5th, maybe May 4th. We need to follow up on that, but it's going to be opening to the public, and I just think it's one of those non-sarcastic growing the game things that's incredible. And shout out to Barrier Free Golf and the Loop at Chaska.
That's really cool. More places need to do stuff like that. Well, carrying on that theme of golf course redesign, I think something that stood out to me this week was the folks at Landman, Will Anderson, who owns the farmland. They farm all this property, but they created Landman with the help of King Collins, and they have another course right down the road called Old Dane Golf Club, and it was just announced that Trev Dormer is going to be redoing it for him. So right now it's a 9-hole course. It's pretty flat. It was really cool. Will said he bought it for his dad to have a place just to go play and hang out with his buddies, and but now they're going to redo it and turn it into a 12-hole course, and it's going to have 6, 9, and 12-hole loops, which I think is really cool. But yeah, so Trev Dormer's doing it. He worked a little bit with Rob Collins and the folks there at Landman, has worked with Corin Crenshaw. They're going to start when the season ends at the beginning of October. Should be opened in the summer of 2026. So that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I think Trevor Dormer is a name that you'll hear a lot more of in the future. Obviously, a super talented guy. So I'll round it out. This is pretty self-serving, but I think today, the day we're recording this, at least, my wife opened a bookstore in downtown Rome, Georgia, the booming metropolis of Rome, Georgia. Robby, you actually got a chance to have a sneak peek at the store, but she had her ribbon cutting today with the Chamber of Commerce in Rome, and River and Hill Books is off and running. I don't think there's a single golf book in there, and I was going to ask you, Robby, do you have a suggestion for what should be the first golf book to put you on the spot?
It's got to be.
I really put
Tom
you on the
Coyne.
spot.
Tom Coyne, right?
There you go.
Any of his books. Would be great, and they're good for non-golfers as well because he's such a great storyteller. So yeah, I think any of his books would be perfect.
That's a great answer, and I will I may have to remedy that and start a little shelf of my golf picks, and maybe we can get some suggestions from everybody out there too.
Yeah. Well, I will give a shout out. I did get to visit. Thank you for letting me come. And my wife, I got her that sweatshirt. She absolutely loves that thing. So
awesome.
Go get books for sure. But the sweatshirt is an awesome selection as well.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, with that, thank you all for making it this far. I say this every time. It's just mind-boggling that we have a podcast about this kind of stuff. But I'm always excited to chat with you, Robby, and I hope you guys will all join us in the next round for another episode of Pictures on the Scorecard.